The Amhara people are wonderful in three basic aspects. First, economic moral.
The Amhara people are special. If this fascist regime had carried out the war in Amhara areas in Somalia, would Somalia be Somalia today? If he did it in the south, would the south be south today? If it was held in Oromia, would Oromia be Oromia today? How much damage did the war in Tigray cause? Even today, it is covered up for the sake of the glory and power of the fascist regime and the TNG individuals, but the story of the total human and material destruction that happened in Tigray will be revealed in the future chapter. When the war in Tigray, which has not crossed 2 solid years, did Tigray feed the rest of the Ethiopian people? I will not eat. Tigray areas produced and sold? They didn't sell. Did the Tigray areas collect taxes and hand them over to the so-called fascist regime when they were at war? They did not submit. However, the Amhara people have been forced into a continuous war since the arrival of the dictator Abiy Ahmed. Amhara, which was condemned to remain a war zone for the entire 7 years of the dictator Abiy Ahmed's rule, did not stop collecting and submitting the largest share of taxes for the country. The Amhara region, which was decided by the regime to be wintered under the conditions of war, has not failed to provide the country with the basic food consumption and raw materials for factories. If this war, which was constantly threatened by the regime's scheming political promoters, to say goodbye to the Amhara region, if it had been fought in the south, would it have been possible to collect 1/4/1/4 of the tax, not to mention the highest tax for the country? It's impossible. Like the number of wars in the Amhara region, did the 2-year war in Tigray give Tigray an opportunity to produce grain like Amhara? He did not give it. Like the number of wars that have been waged on the Amhara people for 7 years without a break, if the war had been going on for 7 years in the same Oromia region, would it have been possible to get even half of the teff production that the Amhara people continuously provided from the Oromia region? Unthinkable.
Second, sovereignty moral.
Under the coordination of the fascist and dictator Abiy Ahmed and the creation of war pretexts, the various wars that have been alternating in the Amhara areas for the past 7 years, including the current one, have not made the Amhara people search for a foreign enemy. In the Oromia region, the wars between the armed forces of the UNO Shen and the regime's forces have repeatedly targeted the innocent, and various foreign enemy forces from Sudan and South Sudan have also participated in the enmity by violating Ethiopia's sovereign borders. As a result, many citizens were subjected to genocide, rape, property theft, and destruction. At the invitation of OLP Shen and the regime's military officers, foreign/enemy militants who crossed the border exposed citizens to endless harm. In the war that took place in Tigray, foreign militants who crossed the border from Eritrea and Sudan caused a lot of human and material harm to the citizens. Due to the war between the Wenji, which calls itself the Oromo Liberator, and the regime's forces in Bale, Somali areas, international terrorist organizations such as Al-Shabaab have breached the borders and committed heavy atrocities on the citizens. On the contrary, during the 7-year war that was declared against the Amhara people, the sovereign border violations and the direct or indirect involvement of foreign forces in the struggle, the trends of causing suffering to its own citizens were not seen at all. In the Amhara War of Existence campaign, the Fano forces, who are fighting for their lives, have never been seen to launch attacks targeting the innocent. On the contrary, except for the many crimes of abductions and brutal murders carried out in the name of Fano, which were directly commissioned by the fascist regime, there were no attacks on innocent people by Fano's forces anywhere, at any time. This shows how much the Amhara people, especially the Fano forces who are participating in the struggle for survival, are fighting with the principles of sovereign courtesy.
Third, social decency or people moral.
It is called a false narrative, it is called a race politics sermon, it is called a hate speech, it is called a constitutional provision, etc. He has been preaching to hate and doubt the Amhara identity beyond the nations in Ethiopia and even Amhara himself. The fruit of the sermon was that Gomer condemned Amhara to be a crushed, persecuted, displaced, and oppressed nation/identity in his own country. The Amhara people as a people are grouped with other identities in the areas where they live and are seen as a minority identity due to their small population. Even so, the Amhara people did not rise up against the other Ethiopian identities. Even now, the Amhara people do not consider other identities and nations as enemies, but the structural system of individuals that have created a regime/systemic problem. The Amhara people have been disobeyed in their own country for many reasons, and they have been declared hostile to the written and unwritten laws of other identities. Amhara does not have the social experience of classifying other identities as enemies or attacking them based on race. A social structure that gathers to attack other identities based on their race is not found in the Amhara identity. However, if Amhara decides to oppress other identities by identifying them as they are, he knows the consequences well. They classified him as a racist when he supported his claim of ownership of some territory by history, man, nature, law and morals and evidence. By interpreting the question of territory and boundaries as a desire for oppression or violence, they have gone to great lengths to make the Amhara identity seen as a racist identity. Since the days of the kings, the Amhara identity has focused its attention and struggle on the change of system, but it is a society that has never started the question of rights based on identity or race. Starting from yesterday in THNG and continuing today in ONG, he notes that the biggest reason why Amhara is criticized and accused for his #unity is his hidden social politeness.
It's a matter of time.
Distracted by the country that he likes to live in, a fragmented and self-directed country, now Amhara will fight to be free? May Amhara lead us to freedom. In the cursed and blessed country of America, the black people, estimated at 94%, who are entertaining the whites, if they see the Amhara struggle for survival and freedom again, they will eat the whites right there. The entire black people know the taste of freedom because it is the Amhara people's struggle for survival. Victory for the Amhara people. Victory for all Amhara farmers.
Aklose Tibebu.